Are you worried about how fees might be eating away at your retirement savings? Well, in this video, we're going to uncover the hidden costs that could be impacting your financial future and share some tips to maximize your hard-earned money. So let's make sure your retirement savings are working just as hard as you do.
Welcome. I'm Mike Castaigne, and I'm here to help you unlock the power of real estate to create the life that you deserve. Through strategic probate, trust, and investment transactions, I focus on delivering maximum returns for my clients and investor partners. Whether you're looking to navigate the complexities of real estate, grow your portfolio, or achieve financial independence, this channel is your go-to resource. For my fellow real estate agents, I provide guidance on boosting your income with an enhanced compensation model, the ability to earn stock equity, and build lifetime residual income. Plus, I share insights into exclusive lead generation strategies and tools you need to thrive with the most agent-centric brokerage in the industry. Join me as we embark on an honest, empowering journey toward your real estate and entrepreneurial goals. If you're ready to grow, learn, and succeed, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's make it happen together.
So my name is Mike Castaigne. I'm a real estate agent in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 20 years, and I'm also specialized in investment properties. I'm also invested personally in over 400 units in state and out of state. As an investor, I have experience as a sole proprietor, individually, as well as co-own some small businesses over the years. And I also have a private equity fund, private equity firm where I assist individuals to invest in bigger assets through a group investing model. But today we're going to be discussing on a high level retirement industry, but more focused on individual retirement accounts and how individuals can maximize their retirement savings, and more so just educate ourselves on all the fees that are associated with employer sponsored and other type of retirement accounts. Before we move on, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Like the videos and share them with your family and friends if you think the content is worthwhile. But also go ahead and subscribe so you can be notified of future content that I put out. So just a real quick disclaimer that this is an educational video and educational information only, and it's based on my personal and professional experience as it relates to real estate sales and investing personally, as well as my associations with a lot of investors across the nation. This should not be considered legal or professional financial advice. But it is pretty sound advice, in my opinion. But you should seek out those individual respective professionals as you need to. So to speak of the retirement industry on a high level, traditionally and historically, a company used to work for a company for your whole career, and when you went to retire, you'd be awarded a pension, you'd be awarded a lifetime income. And typically, the employers have historically funded that entirely on the company's at the company's expense without any employee participation. But back in the late 70s and early 80s, it became apparent to large corporations and employers that pension plans were becoming very expensive, and it wasn't sustainable for the company financially to continue to fund their workers' retirement. So then they began hiring many consultants, and one consultant in particular found a loophole in the tax code, and it was found in subsection 401 paragraph K of the tax code that they can replace these employer-funded pension plans with an employee-funded account, and thus was the birth of the 401k. And from there, more firms and brokerages started to pop up and develop themselves and offer these employee-funded accounts, where there may or may not have been any employer participation financially, but the majority of the funding over the employee's work career was majority funded by the employee themselves. And because of the large brokerages that were involved, they began advertising their services through large media. And because of that, you're going to find later in this presentation that there are a lot of fees involved with managing these accounts for you and me at the employee level that we may or may not see or be aware of, at least. The father, quote unquote, father of the 401k, this was that consultant who found the loophole in the tax code. His name was Ted Benna. And if you asked him 40 years later what he thought of his so-called invention of the 401k, basically he said it's really ridden with fees and it's to the detriment of the actual employee and it's for the benefit of the employer. And we're going to see that effect in just a few slides. There was also a gentleman named John Bogle, who was the founder of Vanguard. You might recall the Vanguard index funds, which is the lowest cost index funds that you can find on the market. He developed a fund and a brokerage based on low fees, which is great for us. However, he became so turned off and by the 401k industry that back in 1980, he saw the writing on the wall and it drove him out of the industry for a period of time and back into teaching at a Christian college. And this is a man who created his career and wealth in the retirement industry. So the reason why Jack Bogle and Ted Benna are now against the 401k or warning against the problems associated with it is because of the excessive fees involved. And it just really eats away at your potential or your returns. And there are so many fees that some are apparent, but there are a lot of these fees that are hidden from the average consumer or the average employee who just is not aware of where these fees are, what these fees are, or how they work, or if they're even being charged to us. You could see the myriad of fees that get charged to the employees in a traditional 401k or similar plan. And I'll jokingly call it the SB1 fee. It's a fee for advertising these large brokerages during a major sporting events or on large media like TV. In that, just think about the Super Bowl commercials where a 30-second or a 60-second commercial costs millions and millions of dollars, and we're all entertained by those commercials during the Super Bowl or other sporting events. But if a large brokerage is advertising those, the brokerage is not spending their profits to pay for that ad. They're spending yours and my money to pay for that ad. So that's what there are advertising fees that are charged to the account holders to allow these brokerages to advertise to other potential customers so they could sign more people up and take more of their fees in addition to ours. Now, one of Robert Kiyosaki, better known his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of his personal advisors, Andy Tanner, wrote a book on the subject called 401 Chaos, which really takes a deep dive and outlines how these accounts and these brokerage firms are really taking our money and excessively. So I'll put the download link down in the description for you to do a free download of this book, or you could just order it off of Amazon or something like that. But this, if you want to take a deeper dive, go and check this book out. But it's really shows you how much fees come out. Similarly, there's a documentary on a PBS Frontline series called The Retirement Gamble. And one of the people highlighted is a person I mentioned a few slides ago, Jack Bogle of Vanguard, where he really outlines how these fees are taken out of your account and how much it costs a average worker who's trying to fund their retirement, and how these brokerages siphon away the majority of your profits for their benefit. So I would this documentary was initially produced back in the early to mid 1990s, but I would suggest that you go ahead and go on YouTube and search for this, and you could watch it for free and check out the replay, because it's still, even though the information is a little older from the 1990s, it's still relevant in terms of what's still going on in the industry. So Jack Bogle also wrote a book, and in his book, he gives an example of if someone who was 20 years old invested $1,000 at 20 years old and let the market just do the work over a 65-year period, what would happen? And this is without any future contributions. It's just an average 8% return over a 65-year period. And at the end of that 65 years, at 8%, that $1,000 without any other contributions over that period of time, just by the interest rate, would grow to a theoretical $140,000. Now we know that if there's a brokerage or a fund manager managing that portfolio or that fund, then we're going to have to pay fees on that. That's realistic. But let's see what it really, how much net the saver, the employee, would actually receive at the end of that 65 years. So at the end of investing $1,000 at that 8% interest rate over 65 years would theoretically give you $140,000. But because of compounded fees that are taken by the brokerage company, there's only $30,000 that is given to the employee or to the person saving the money in that brokerage account. So there is a gross profit of 8, or gross return of 8% over a 65-year period, but because of the 2% compounded fee that goes to the brokerage, the net return to the saver, to the employee, is only 5.5%. And because of the compounded fee, the brokerage firm is earning $110,000, and the employee, only that $1,000 only grows to $30,000 after fees. So to get this straight, the employee who's saving this $1,000 beginning at age 20, after 65 years, they put all their capital at risk and took all the risk of the investment, and only got 20% of the return, and the brokerage firm put up no capital and had no risk and received 80% of the return. And I'm not sure what you think about that, but that doesn't seem right. But it is the way compounding interest works, as well as compounding fees, which is what the brokerage firm is taking advantage of in this example. And if you don't believe me, go ahead. I'll put this link down in the comment into the description as well. But go ahead and look at this uh, table of compounding cost, and that will validate the example I just showed you on the previous slide. Now, what comes first, the golden egg and the golden goose, or the 401k? Well, again, as I said before, there was a time where the majority of the employees in this nation benefited from pensions and got a lifetime income at the expense of the company. But now we've transitioned into an era of where the employee is responsible for funding their own retirement. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, but when these brokerage firms are, as I demonstrated in the previous slide, are taking these fees, whether you're aware of them or not, they're siphoning off a large amount of your profits that you should be earning over the period of your investing lifetime. So it's up to us, it's up to you and me to take responsibility for our own retirement. And that takes some education. But the goal is to avoid Wall Street's greed and deception as it relates to this. So it's up to you to become educated and take care of your own financial well-being. But how do you do that? Let's take a look. So let's just look at popular retirement plans that are available to everyday people. We have retirement plans like 401ks or their equivalent, depending on if you're in the private industry or you're a public type of employee. But they're all the ones up top. 401k, 403b is like an educational equivalent to the 401k if you worked at a college or university or some type of school environment. A 457 plan is like a local city or state government type of employee. A TSP, which stands for Thrift Savings Plan, is a federal government type of retirement plan, but they all are the equivalent of a 401k. So if I use 401k in this presentation, it's related. It's the equivalent of any of those type of plans. And these are 2025 contribution limits that I have listed here. So these are what you can contribute pre-tax from your salary, from your income, and that amount of money won't be taxed. It'll be tax deferred money, and it won't get taxed until you are retired or or retirement age, usually that retirement age is 59 and a half, and you could start taking distributions from these particular accounts. So if you're under 50 years old, you can contribute up to $23,500 per year. If you're over 50, there is a catch-up provision of $7,500. So that would equal a total of $31,000. And if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, there's another catch-up level where it would total top out at $34,750. So that's for the 401k type of plans. And then if you utilize a traditional or Roth IRA, though there's limits, there's income limits on how much you can, if you can contribute to those at all. But then there's an annual limit, as you see below, whether it's $7,000 or $8,000. And then there's a difference between a traditional Roth, which you investing tax deferred or tax deferred money, pre-tax money into that account, and then that tax is deferred until you start your distributions at your retirement age of 59 and a half. Or Roth IRA money is after-tax contributions, where the principal and the interest earned throughout the holding period of that uh, account is not taxed. So it's after-tax money that earns that grows tax-free. So that's the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. And then there's also brokerage accounts available to everybody, and those are typically where you would invest in individual stocks, like Tesla and Nvidia and those type of stocks. So that's what's available to most everybody today, where you could plan for your retirement in a brokerage type of account, where you're investing in stocks, mutual funds, and things like that. But what can you do, and how could you avoid those fees that I showed you several slides ago? And how could me and my team help you out? Well, this is the first step, is educating you, and then we could discuss some other steps later on in this presentation. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you have an employer-sponsored retirement account, as I said, the 401k or similar plan, you can borrow up to $50,000 or 50% of the account balance, whichever is less, where you could take that money out and then repay it over a period of time. But you could take that $50,000 or 50% of the balance and invest it elsewhere, where you would manage it yourself and it wouldn't be subjected to any fees. And I'm going to give you an example of that later. So the $50,000 or 50% account balance means that if you had an account balance that's $100,000 or more, then you could loan yourself $50,000. But if it's below that $100,000 threshold, then it will be 50% of the account balance. Okay, so it's whichever one is less, and you can only take one of those loans out at a time, and then you have to repay it. And then if you wanted to, you could do it again. Now, there's benefits to doing that, and there's negatives. If you took the money out of your brokerage account, obviously that sum, let's just call it $50,000 for this example, wouldn't be would be deducted from your account balance, and that wouldn't be subject to the earnings potential of that account. If the S&P, for example, was on a upward trend, you wouldn't get those returns of that money that you took out of that account during that period of time. So that's one of the negatives. But let's look at an example of what this would look like. If you wanted to borrow that $50,000 from your employer-sponsored retirement account, once you complete all the application process and satisfy what your brokerage requested from you, then it would take about a week or a little bit more for that money to either be transferred electronically to your account, or a check might be mailed in. You might receive a check in the mail in your mailbox, and then you could take that money if you wanted to. And again, you're going to have to repay that $50,000 balance back to that retirement account. And typically is through a pre-planned payroll deduction, because the brokerage wants to ensure that they receive the money back, or else you're going to get charged a real stiff penalty. And we could discuss that a little further later. But what is kind of cool about this, even though that money's not still present in that account, the interest, you are charged interest, and it's usually, it depends on the prevailing interest rates and with typical loans, but it's typically low, usually like in the 6 to 7, maybe as high as 8%. But those interest payments are paid back to your account. So you deducted that $50,000, and you're paying back the principal and interest to yourself. So it's kind of a double. If you look at it one way, it could be a win-win, because you're using that money for a purpose, and you're repaying it with interest back to yourself into your retirement account that continues to grow. But let's look at what you can do with that $50,000 once you receive the principal in your bank account. Let's say you want to become a private money lender. You want to lend this money to someone to do a real estate investment or invest in some type of business, or you want to invest in something yourself. You could take that $50,000 and let's say you are anticipating a 12% annual return on that money. And one note is that whatever investment you want to get into, I would suggest that it would be your return should be greater than the interest that you're paying back yourself. So in the previous example, if you borrowed this $50,000 and you're repaying it via paycheck deduction at 6%, we would want at least a higher return than that 6%. So you're not only repaying yourself, but then there's a padded profit margin already factored into that equation. So you're earning money on top of your own money. So then let's say it's a 12% return, and if it's real estate, it's protected, insured, and secured, protected by a deed of trust, insured by a builder's risk policy. If it's a flip type of project or a development type of project, and it's secured by a promissory note that the person that the investor that you're investing with has some personal stake that if that deal goes south, that they're going to pay you either have recourse through the real estate itself and or through the person who's handling that investment for you. But once the loan, once that loan has been repaid, that $50,000 that you invested in that deal, and maybe it's a flip project and it takes a year to buy the property, do the rehab, and then sell it, then you get your return back, and then you get your $50,000 back. Then you repay that $50,000 back to your 401k account, plus the $6,000 12% return that you received, and then you got a 12% plus return on investment. And that's passive income because you probably you either did it yourself or that would be an active return. But if you invested with another party, then you wouldn't have to do much. And that's what we call mailbox money, which is what most people strive for. So there's another way that's if you borrowed money from your own employer-sponsored retirement account. There's another way that you can do this, and it's through a self-directed retirement account. And this is where you turn your managed brokerage account into a passive custodian to where you can manage your money yourself. And short story, my wife took a buyout years ago from her employer, and and then she went back to school and became a sole proprietor and had her own business. And for a couple of years, the money in her previous employer's 401k account just sat in the brokerage fund, just subject to market conditions. It kind of went up, but then it goes down. But it was flat because there was no steady paycheck contributions that were going into the account. And then we investigated and researched a ton and decided to roll the money over into a self-directed account since she was self-employed. And I'm going to give you an example of how that works in a second. And we were able to, that's how we started our real estate investing experience, is using self-directed retirement funds. So how do you do this? To open up a self-directed retirement account, you do need to be self-employed. And you could either be a small business owner and that's your full-time income, or if you have a W-2 full-time job, do you have a side hustle? Do you have a part-time job, part-time gig where you're selling things on Etsy, for example, or maybe you drive as an independent contract for Uber or Lyft or something like that, or whatever. You could do something part time that's either a 1099 employee or you're a sole proprietor at something, and you can yourself open up a self-directed retirement account and invest in alternative assets like real estate. Um, there's With a self-directed retirement account, there's only a few things that you cannot invest in, and I'm not going to explain those now because that goes beyond the scope of this presentation. But let's look at what this kind of looks like. So there's a few different kinds of self-directed retirement accounts. You have your simple self-directed IRAs, and these are a little more powerful than your traditional IRAs that I went over a couple of slides ago. These you can invest up to 16,500 per year, and they have some age-appropriate catch-up limits on those. Those are pretty good, but not the greatest. You also have a self-employment plan IRA, or we call a SEP IRA, and this is based on your again, that's limited to that $16,500 limit individually, but then there's a profit share provision where you can invest up to about $70,000, but that's based on a percentage of your Schedule C income. What's even more powerful than these two is what my wife and I were able to qualify for and actually set up ourselves, was a solo 401k plan. And you have to meet certain requirements for this, but it's pretty simple. If you're a sole proprietor, you can have employees or not, but it looks kind of like this, where your company, you set up your company, you're a sole proprietor, you open up your solo 401k account, and you could save much more money, much more quickly than the self-directed IRA or the SEP IRA. And the way that looks, it's the initial annual contribution limits are the same as your employer sponsored 401k plan we went over a few slides ago, where if you're under age 50, it's 23,500, or if you're over age 50, it's 31,000, and even more if you're age 60 to 63. But again, this one, similar to your SEP IRA plan, has a profit sharing provision where you can put away more money, up to $70,000, or if there's that catch up based on your age, $77,500, or up to $81,250. And the real powerful thing about this plan is that as far as the IRS is concerned, that the individual business owner, say it's me who has the solo on 4K, my spouse automatically qualifies to invest in this also, even if they have a full-time W-2 job, and all this money comes out of the gross profits of this business, and you can actually double the employee deferral money as well as the profit share money. So theoretically, if you're under age 50, you could save pre-tax $140,000 per year. Over 50, it's up to $155,000. And if you're between age 60 and 63, that's over $162,000 you could save pre-tax through this plan. But let's look at what this looks like, how to invest. And you're not limited to a dollar amount on how much you can invest through a self self-directed retirement plan, whether it's a self-directed IRA, a self-directed a self-employment, a SEP IRA, or a solo 401k. I'm just going to use the most we can as a 50-year-old or under 50-year-old person can save pre-tax money per year. We're going to use that $70,000 figure just as an example. But if you wanted to take the whole balance of your retirement account and put it on one investment, then there's no rule saying that you cannot do that. But let's just use the $70,000 figure as an example. You could take that $70,000 and we're going to just use real estate as an example of something that an asset that you can invest in because it's a protected, secured, and insured asset. And you're going to invest that $70,000 at that 12% annual return. And by the way, there is no interest rate on repayment because this is your account. So you don't have to repay this through paycheck deductions or anything like that. You just repay it when you repay it. And the only thing that you would be penalized for is if you didn't pay it back. But you do have to pay this back into the retirement account, and all the returns that are generated, all the profits need to go back into the retirement account until you reach the age that you can actually start your distributions, which is typically 59 and a half. But anyway, let's say take that $70,000 that is invested for 12 months at a 12% interest, and that's $8,400 profit annual. So that looked like that you just earned 12% on that initial investment, and that goes back to solo 401k account, and that's tax-free money. There's no penalties, no fees that go to anybody. That money just goes back into your account and is tax deferred until you start taking required minimum distributions at the appropriate age, and then it's taxed at the limit that based on your income tax bracket at that time in your life. So there's several, and a lot more than is on this slide. There are several custodians who can help you set up your self-directed retirement account. And this slide in no way is suggesting or endorsing these companies. I don't have any affiliations or financial relationships with any of these self-directed retirement custodians. These are just some that I know of. The only one that I have personal experience with is the one on top, IRA for Financial, and I'm not endorsing them in any way. This is just the company that I use for my wife and I use for our self-directed 401k solo 401k plan, and we've had great experience, and that's the best I could tell you about it. If you want to talk further, we could talk offline about it. But here are some other ones that I have knowledge of, but I can't attest to anything aside from that they're out there. Now, I will say that there are custodians who serve different purposes, and you need to do your own due diligence, and you need to conduct your own research with these custodians to make sure that it suits your situation the best, because everybody's got their own unique situation and goals and objectives, and I could help define those and help you strategize, but it's up to you to pick the correct company. They're all very similar, but there are some differences between how they each do business, and it's just a matter of you determining what is important to you and how you want to operate. And if you got any questions, we could talk about that further. Just I'm going to give you some contact information in a second. So anyway, that's the presentation. If you want to join my investor community and get on my investor list of when I would have any type of investment opportunity, go ahead and text the word invest to the number you see, 510-369-5080. And you could also get instant access to a guide on some of the information and more that we went over in this video on how to invest with your retirement funds. That will also be available if you text invest to 510-369-5080. Outside of that, if you got some generalized questions or more specific regarding anything I went over, ping me at any of these addresses. I'm available on social media by DM or any of these email addresses, and my website is available. So I hope this information was helpful, and don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help, and happy investing.